Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. So today we're going to be talking about the Canon EOS RP. Okay, so that's obviously not a Canon EOS RP, I just needed a prop, and that's because I'm actually recording on my Canon EOS RP, but hey, that's what B-roll is for. Now I get asked all the time, especially on Instagram, what camera are you shooting with? Hey, what camera is that? Is that a Canon EOS R? And I think it surprises a lot of people when I tell them, no, it's not a Canon EOS R, it's actually a Canon EOS RP. So the Canon EOS RP is a full frame mirrorless camera rocking a 26.2 megapixel CMOS sensor that retails for about $1,000 US. End of review, that's all you need to know. But all jokes aside, the Canon EOS RP is the only camera that I've ever owned. I actually purchased it about a year ago when I decided that I was gonna get serious about photography. So after a year of me using the Canon EOS RP, we're gonna talk about all the pros and the cons of the camera and why it's still maybe the best beginner full frame mirrorless option for any photographer heading into 2022. So as always, let's get into it. So everything that you guys see on my Instagram as well as on my YouTube is actually shot using the Canon EOS RP. So right away, off the bat, not saying that my stuff is good, but it should show you the potential of this camera and what it's capable of. Okay, so one of the main reasons that this camera is so attractive is because of its price point. To get a full frame mirrorless camera for about $1,000 US is almost unheard of. And it's actually one of the main reasons why I initially bought this camera. I wanted to get into the full frame world and the mirrorless world without kind of breaking the bank and sort of future-proofing myself at the same time. And I'm definitely going to explain what I mean by future-proofing in just a moment. But first, let's quickly talk about the body and the construction of the camera real quick. So right away, its size is really small and light, which has definitely made it really good for traveling. It has one memory card slot for SD cards, no CF Express or anything like that. I do wish it had dual slots sometimes. It has a mic and a headset jack as well, which I connect a microphone into every time I record a YouTube video. And it also has a 3-inch flip out touch LCD, which is really responsive, something that I was surprised about. And it was definitely one of my main requirements when I was purchasing this camera, because I knew that it was going to be my main photography camera as well as my YouTube camera, so the flip out screen was an absolute must for me. The dials at the top are also very tactile and clicky feeling, so they're really satisfying to roll through, which is something that I'm personally a big fan of. The RP also has Canon's newest mount, which is the RF mount, so it's compatible with all of Canon's newest lenses and their best lenses, if you want to call the RF lenses the best ones. Unfortunately, the selection is kind of limited at the moment and they're all pretty expensive. There's no third-party lenses available for the RF mount either at the moment, but there is high hopes that this will change in 2022 with companies like Sigma and Tamron joining the fray. The buttons are overall limited, and because with this camera you're actually encouraged to use the touchscreen. For the greater assortment of quick access buttons and dials, you actually need to look at Canon's more professional bodies. Okay, so let's talk about this camera's performance. So it has a couple of burst modes. So it has a high continuous shooting mode, meaning that it's really focusing on speed over focusing on a target. And when you're in this mode, you can shoot at up to 5 frames per second. And then it has a low speed continuous shooting mode where it tries to shoot as fast as it can but prioritizing focus over speed, and in this mode it's about 2.5 frames per second. So overall this is kind of slow. So if you're looking to buy this camera to shoot high action, quick moving subjects, like maybe you want to shoot sports like basketball or hockey or something, I don't think this is the camera for that particular scenario, because you are going to end up missing out on some moments just because the camera won't be fast enough to keep up with the speed of your subject. So again, if you're looking for something that's really fast, has tons of frames per second while shooting, this is probably not the camera that you want to lean towards. This camera does come with Canon's famous dual pixel autofocus. and I've got to say it's really good. It almost never misses the mark. The focus is usually almost on point. It's like it's reading my mind sometimes. That's how good the focus really is. Now, the dual autofocus is not available in 4K recording for video, but we'll get into that in a second. The ISO range for this camera is from 100 to 40,000, but I will say that the camera does struggle in the upper range of that. There's a considerable amount of grain in the images anytime you pass like 3200. So I will say this is not the ideal body for low light shooting. I usually try and keep my ISO really low, somewhere around 300 to like 600 when I'm shooting with it. This camera does have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, meaning that you can actually use your phone as a remote, and that's really awesome. I actually do that all the time when I'm recording YouTube videos. So I actually have the camera up on a tripod right now, and every time I want to do a new take or I want to start or stop recording, I just use my phone as a remote and I sort of control it that way, which I think is super convenient. Now, the photos out of this camera are actually really fantastic, especially paired with a really good lens. I've used this camera for all of my travel photography, all of my portraits. I've shot weddings on this camera. I've delivered projects to professional clients using this camera, and the results are really good. So if you're purchasing this camera for predictable daylight, well-lit subjects that you want to mainly use it as a photography tool for, this camera is an excellent option and packs a ton of power. Like I said earlier, it's a full-frame mirrorless camera that has a 26.2 megapixel CMOS sensor. So the images that you're gonna get out of this camera, especially when you're able to control your environment, are really amazing. And there's not a beginner out there that I wouldn't recommend this camera to, especially if they're just looking to get into photography. But again, if you're looking to move any fast moving subjects and you think you're gonna be shooting a lot in low light, you might wanna consider something else. Now let's talk about the video modes on this camera. So this camera does shoot in full HD at up to 60 frames per second. And yes, it has 24 frames per second compatibility in full HD. If you guys are watching a review that says it doesn't have this, it's definitely outdated, and this has been corrected through a firmware update. So as long as I've owned the camera, it has had 24 frames per second compatibility. There's also 4K at 24 frames per second, but there is a significant crop, and it also doesn't have dual autofocus like I mentioned earlier. So it's usually hunting a lot, and I feel like it struggles to find the target in 4K. So for me, I found it to be kind of unusable in most scenarios. Even these YouTube videos that I record for you guys, I actually shoot them in 1080p at 24 frames per second, and then I upscale them to 4K when I'm editing in Final Cut Pro 10. And I guarantee you no one will be able to tell the difference, especially since most people watch YouTube videos on their phones. So for me, the video capabilities are more than enough if you're looking to do something like shooting YouTube videos. But if you're getting this camera for just video, like that's your primary thing, you want to shoot video for this camera, I'm gonna save you some time. Do not buy this camera. This is not it. And there are so many reasons for that. This camera struggles in low light. It has that 4K crop. There's no in-body image stabilization, so the video is always shaking all over the place, even with the digital image stabilization enabled, and even while using a lens that has stabilization, I just feel like the video is way too shaky. So especially when I'm traveling, I actually end up just using my phone to record video because the camera footage just gives me so much trouble. So if you're primarily a video shooter and you want to just shoot video for this camera, trust me, stay away. But if you are looking to use this camera for stationary video, meaning you're gonna put it on a tripod, you wanna record YouTube videos, you wanna do talking heads, you wanna record interviews of people, maybe you wanna do a podcast, this camera is an awesome option because when it's not moving around a lot, and you can use that 1080p and that dual autofocus is available for you, you get an amazing full frame $1,000 camera that can record pretty good video when it's not moving around. So what do I think of this camera for a beginner setup? It checks off so many boxes. It's full frame, it's mirrorless, it has a flip out LCD screen, it has Canon's dual autofocus, you have 26.2 megapixels, it's incredibly well priced, but at the same time it has all of its shortcomings. There's that 4K crop, there's no in-body image stabilization, it suffers in low light, the lens selection is limited. But what I will say, all the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. If you're a brand new photographer or you're a beginner photographer, you're looking to jump into the full frame mirrorless world and your primary focus is photography, and maybe you want to do a little bit of light video work, or maybe you're looking to start your YouTube channel or a new YouTube channel in 2022, I think this camera is a fantastic option, and I would struggle to not recommend it to a beginner who's focusing mainly on these things. And that's it for this video, guys. So hopefully you guys learned something new, and as always, if you did, don't forget to leave a like at the bottom of the page, smash that like button, it really helps out the video. If you guys are into photography, drones, cameras, all things related, then definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel, I would really appreciate it. Other than that, that's all I have for this one. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, keep creating.